I just wanted to put out a quick message to Facebook that I was going live now in case anyone was interested in watching at this time. For a lot of you, I'm not going to say anything that I haven't said before, but in the last few months I've acquired new friends on Facebook. I have a lot of new connections and have been connecting with people from high school and college again, and several people have reached out that have found themselves in a position where they need help with their job search. And I haven't really put anything out the last few months about my experience or business where I help people with their job searches and help them with their resumes, because that hasn't been my focus lately. All of you know, I think, or most of you know, that I've been very busy building other businesses, and one of which was Mink Bath Bombs. And since Mink was acquired by the She brand, I've been spending more time working on that, and then also a couple of other business ideas that I had put on the back burner. I've been busy working with those, but my heart has always been, or it has been for many years, in helping people, or to help people find work. And so I wanted to give you a little background about that. Like I said, most of you probably already know this, but my background is in human resources. But before that, when I was still in Silicon Valley, right around the time of the crash of the .com era, that's actually how I got started in human resources. After college, I was working in direct marketing and video gaming. I was a project manager and an operations supervisor, and I was doing pretty well for myself, being a new graduate, when the bottom fell out of my world. The crash of the .com brought a couple of layoffs, and I was shocked that when I started to look for another job, I was being offered about 60% of my typical salary. And at the time, I think I was pretty arrogant and prideful, and thought that I was worth so much more than 60% what I was making before, that I wasn't taking any of those offers. And a couple of friends said, you know, maybe I should relocate like they were going to do to Southern California. So briefly, there were probably 20 people in my immediate circle. We all attended the same church, and we were all laid off from different places in Silicon Valley, and at different times, but it just seemed like it was, you know, a rolling effect, and it was pretty hard to handle for all of us, for most of us. So fast forward, I moved to Southern California, and I decided that I wanted to try something different. I didn't want to be in direct marketing or creative services anymore. I didn't want to work with artists. I was working with graphic designers and copywriters, and I just didn't want to do that anymore. Especially because I was struggling so much, even after moving to SoCal, I was struggling so much with finding a good job and keeping it. The first job I found, I think I found after 5 weeks of being here, 5 or 6 weeks of being here, and the gentleman that hired me decided to close his office. So I found myself again unemployed and struggling with depression, and thought, you know, I have to do something different. So I decided I wanted to get into human resources. I wanted to help people find work. I wanted to be the person that I always felt that I needed when I was struggling, either with a layoff or underemployment or unemployment. And the best way for me to be able to do that was to get into human resources, to develop a human resources career. And that's primarily, you know, how I got into career counseling. I started off as a HR assistant, and it was a temp position. And I was, shortly after that, I was trying to get into you know, HR positions with other companies, but because I lacked experience, I had a really hard time. So I don't know how I mustered up enough confidence to be able to walk into another agency and spoke very candidly to the recruiter, and I let her know that I wanted to be in human resources and that I didn't have any experience in it. I didn't have the education for it. My background was artistic, it was creative, but I really had a passion for this. I really wanted to do this, and she completely understood, which was good for me because she sent me out for a temporary recruiting position with a company called Trident Dental this is in Southern California, and she said, just go in there and sell yourself. And I told myself, well, it's just like acting, right? And I have limited acting experience, but I thought it's just like acting. I can just go in there and act the part. And so I did. And I was a little vague with some of the responses to the questions that they asked me, but I got the recruiting position. It was temporary, like I said, and I went in there and I did a bang-up job, and at the same time I was able to help a lot of people at the church that I was attending at the time get their foot in the door with that company. I think I helped 6 or 7 unemployed people get jobs there, and we weren't being dishonest, we weren't embellishing or anything like that. I was in a position to be able to bring people on board who were amazing people with great character, and fortunately the management with this company saw that and agreed and brought all of those people on board. And I think most of them ended up working for the same team for a while, which was interesting. And I even brought one in as a manager. So, I really did believe and still do believe that if nothing else, this is, a passion. If it's not a calling, it's a passion for me to continue to help people in this area. And so from there, I went on to becoming a staffing specialist with an agency called Core Staff, and I did their screenings and payroll, and did a few other things for them. And then I went on to work for a manufacturing company in Rancho Dominguez, I believe it was. And funny story, this woman who was a recruiter for them called me and called me and called me and called me repeatedly, but I didn't respond because her area code was 818, and I thought that 818 was too far away from 310. So I thought, well, my area code's 310, 818 must be pretty far away. And I looked it up, and I can't remember what came up, if it was, Thousand Oaks or Simi Valley. I think it was Simi Valley, and I thought, oh wow, that's really far. I'm not interested. But I didn't know that she was recruiting for a company that was right down the street from me. So eventually I called her back because she just wouldn't stop calling. So I called her back. She had seen my resume somewhere, and she said, I have an opportunity that I think you might be interested in. I'd like to speak with you about it. And I said, sure. And she told me it was a management position, and it was with a manufacturing company that had never had HR before. And they really needed someone to come in and just create the department, build up the department, put a handbook together, put orientations together, new hire orientations, and then also put together a safety program because of manufacturing. So these are all things that they didn't have before. So I went in for the interview and got the job. I have no idea if I was the only applicant or not. I don't know what my competition was, but I got the job, and I worked with them for about a year. Shortly after starting there, though, the same recruiter who brought me on board told me that the company was a lawsuit waiting to happen, and so to stick it out for a year but then leave as soon as possible. And I thought, well, that's just great. What have I got myself into? But I did everything that they wanted me to do, and I got my feet wet. I learned a lot there. I learned that I really didn't like firing people. I didn't like having to discipline people. I really wanted to just help them with their careers and help them advance their lives. So when I was laid off from that company, they were closing down and they had a layoff, and I knew it was coming because the culture there was very negative, and all of the managers would scream and holler at each other and curse at one another openly. It was just a very poorly run company, very negative, just I don't even like talking about it really. But I was the only one who didn't behave that way, and I did the best that I could in the space. And I did have a conversation with the CEO who I reported to, and I let him know that I wasn't going to tolerate being belittled or cursed at in that way. And I think he had respect for me. But when it came time for the company to downsize and eventually close, I knew that I would either be the very first person or the very last person that they let go. And everyone's behavior changed, so I knew that I was going to be the first. Everyone, management started saying please, which they had never done before. Thank you. They had never said thank you before. Hi, good morning, how are you? None of these things ever happened with the management at this company. Now, staff members, that was a different story. We were always cordial with each other and nice, and spoke and went to lunch together and things like that. But I was pretty sure that the layoffs were coming, and they were coming, fairly soon. And when I was asked to hand over the organizational chart, that's when I knew. I knew that it was probably going to happen within a day or two. And in fact, it happened that afternoon. I got a message right before lunch. We all took lunch at the same time. The company shut down for an hour in the middle of the day. I received an email from the accounting manager who said, will you please come to my office, please, again, please, will you please come to my office before going to lunch? And I said, sure. I told my coworker, who is a really good friend of mine now, I told her, I won't be here when you get back. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm pretty sure I'm getting laid off right now. So I won't be here at my desk when you get back from lunch. And she said, you better be. So I went into the office, the accounting manager's office, with my pen in my hand, and I was prepared to just sign the document because I wanted to leave. She was nice. The accounting manager was nice. She had backup. A gentleman was standing behind her in case I got out of hand, I guess. So a gentleman was standing behind her, and I forget his name, but he worked there also. And he stood there with his arms folded across his chest, and he was very stern. And, I'd always had good conversations with him, so I thought all of this was very unnecessary. But I stood there, and she said, I'm really sorry that the CEO couldn't be here to do this. Scott was his name. But, we're gonna have to let you go. And I said, okay. And she was really surprised by my response. She handed me the paperwork, and she said, you knew, didn't you? And I said, yes, I did. She said, how did you know? I said, because you were all being nice to me. You were all, saying please and thank you, things that you had never said before. And so I knew that I was being laid off. And the gentleman standing behind her, his name was Art, he said, so what are you going to do now? Are you going to move back home to San Jose? You're going to go back home, live with your mom? I said, no, why would I do that? I'm just going to go home and find another job. And so they escorted me out, which I thought was funny. Those of you who know me, I'm not confrontational. I don't argue with people really. And, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And even in relationships, if a relationship ends, I'm just like, okay, hey, you don't want to be with me anymore. You don't want to be with me anymore. I'm not going to cry over it. I'm not going to worry about it, and we'll just move on. So I left that company, I went home, and as soon as I got home and logged on, I saw something that I was interested in, and it was another HR position. It was in downtown Los Angeles, Boyle Heights to be exact, and I saw it, and I read through it, and I thought, oh, that sounds like something I would really like to do. It was for a training and recruiting officer, so a little bit different from your traditional HR generalist type positions or HR manager positions. It was specifically training and recruiting, and I like the idea of helping people find jobs, bringing people on board, negotiating salaries, and training them. So I thought it was perfect for me, but I didn't have any experience in training. And it was a larger company. It was a nonprofit, but they had about 600 employees. They were looking for someone who was Spanish speaking, and I'm not. So that was a concern. Almost 50% of their workforce was Spanish speaking. So I thought, well, they probably wouldn't be interested in me because I only speak English. Eventually, I revisited that position and I applied, and the woman who was hiring, she was the I want to say she was a director. I believe her position was HR director. I would have been reporting directly to her. She essentially stalked me for 5 weeks. And again, I don't know how many other applicants there might have been for that position. I just know that I interviewed with her. The interview lasted 3 hours. During that 3-hour conversation, I said very little. She didn't ask me too many questions. She mostly just talked about herself and the company and her experience there and her experiences elsewhere. And I think she was pretty much done working there, and so she really just wanted someone to listen to her, and so I don't feel like I had a great interview there, but I got the job. Within a couple of months I wanted to quit. And my friend April, I called her and I said, I hate it here, I don't want to be here, I can't stand it, and yada yada yada. And she said, just stick it out for 3 months, stick it out for 3 months, you know, you can do it, you can do it. And because I had had such a bad track record with employment after the crash of the .com and trying to get, back into regular work, I knew she was right. I knew April was right, and I knew I needed to stick it out, and so I did. I stuck it out. I was like, okay, 3 months. I can do 3 months, right? I can do 3 months. I got this. 3 months. 6.5 years later, I was still there. So thank you, April. But my position changed a lot while I was there. I was a training and recruiting officer, and I did help a lot of people in the beginning. My lack of Spanish skills was overlooked because I agreed to learn Spanish while I was there and do the best that I could to deliver training in English and Spanish. That didn't happen either because my Spanish is very poor, and I think I lack a lot of confidence when it comes to speaking Spanish. When I speak Spanish, it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but I have trouble completing full sentences, making full sentences in Spanish. So anyways, after working for that company 6.5 years as a training and recruiting officer and developing training programs and conducting new hire orientations, and then moving on to become a generalist after the director walked out, she did eventually walk out and left me, holding down the fort. That's when I learned the most about human resources. That's when I learned about benefits. That's when I learned about report writing. I learned Crystal reports, and I learned the ins and outs of, all the databases that we were using, because I was the only one in the department at that point. I was the only one left, and so I really just hunkered down and I really just did the best that I could, and I took it upon myself to learn as much as I could because I knew that I would be able to take these skills, this knowledge, and use it elsewhere. And I knew that I would eventually leave this company because I wasn't happy there. But I did learn a lot. I did teach myself a lot while I was there, and I did take advantage of the training program, and they actually reimbursed me for part of my graduate degree. While I was there, I thought that I would advance my career in human resources, and I would go on to become either a director or a VP or something of that nature. So I decided to get a graduate degree in organizational leadership, and really haven't used it much since then. I went through a series of other companies and other disappointments, and decided eventually to go into career counseling for colleges. And I worked for a couple of colleges. The last one I worked for was the Art Institute, and you may have heard about the Art Institute in the news. They've had a lot of their own drama. They've got in trouble with the Department of Education and had to pay some hefty fines and close a lot of locations. And I think that was the second college I worked for that was having issues like that, having problems like that. And I said, you know what, I just really want to help people find jobs. I really just want to help others advance their career. I want to be the person that I felt like I needed when I was having a hard time, when I was struggling finding work. So I became that person. And again, went into recruiting and advanced my career, and then started writing resumes on the side. And I did that for about 8 years for free. I wrote resumes and counseled people on how to get their foot in the door, what recruiters like, because I had been in recruiting for a while already, what to put on your resume, keywords, choice words, and what to wear, and what to say, and body language and things like that. And I think it really helped. And so I developed a reputation for being a go-to person to help people advance their careers or get their foot in the door for a job. And I don't even know how many people I've helped, but I know that at the colleges, a lot of my graduates would come back and say, thank you, I didn't think that I was going to be able to do it. I really like what you did with my resume, and I thank you for the conversations that we had and building up my confidence, and thank you for being direct. I had a few people that I had to smack around a little bit because they thought they were all that, and didn't know why they graduated at the top of their class, why they weren't getting offered jobs. And a lot of times it has to do with attitude, it has to do with body language. If you don't seem interested in the position, that shows everything that you're thinking or feeling. If you're nervous and you can't control your emotions in an interview, it all shows. So anyways, so now at this point in 2019, I have about somewhere between 18 and 20 years of experience in human resources. I'm not really exactly sure where I should have started counting, because I did a little temping in the beginning to get my foot in the door. But I have helped hundreds with their resumes and salary negotiations, and really believe in achievement, having an achievement-based resume, so that your resume doesn't just say, this is what I did for this company, and this is what I did for that company, and this is what I did in this job. And your resume should not be a cut and paste of your job description, whatever the company said your job is. It really should have achievements on it. So when I say achievements, I mean, like, how did you save the company money? How did you make the company money? Did you change procedures? Did you improve on processes? Things like that. Employers want to see achievements. They want to see how you've contributed to the success of that particular company. And then what they do is they look at those things and they hope that you'll come work for them and do the same thing. And so that's why it's important to have achievements on your resume. And I always tell my clients, you want to highlight your achievements at the top of every position, or at the start of every block of text for every position. You want to start off with your greatest achievements. And if you've been in the workforce for a while, your education is mostly irrelevant. If you've been in the workforce for 10 years or more, your resume should be about 2 pages long. Anything more than 2 pages, and I really don't think anyone's going to read it. I know that I never had time to read the hundreds of resumes that came in for the one position that I had to fill. So a lot of times I would just go through maybe a third of the first page. Maybe I would get through an entire page. Maybe I would get through an entire resume. But I'll tell you this, the minute I stumbled upon an error, a typo, anything that didn't make sense, was a little off, you went in the bad pile. I mean, it's that fast. It happens that fast. I would look at your resume, I see a mistake, and boom, you're out. So you really need to make sure that you're careful with those things. And even if you think you've been careful, you really should have someone else look at your resume for those types of errors, because after you've looked at it yourself for so long, you really become blind to the mistakes that you've made. So achievement-based resumes are the best. And then I do get a lot of questions about negotiating salary. How do you negotiate salary? And I always tell people a couple of things. You don't want to lock yourself in. You don't want to say, well, I know the position was advertised at $18 an hour, so 18 sounds good, I'll just take whatever you're offering, kind of thing. If you can, you always want to state your salary in annual numbers. So the job may be advertised at $18 an hour, but you want to take that and calculate it, multiply it by 2080. That's the average number of hours a person works in a year, 2,080. So you take 2,080 and multiply it by 18. that comes out to $37,440. So you should be asking for a salary of at least $37,440. But when it comes to negotiating salary, you don't want to lock yourself in, so you always want to stay at a range. So with that, I would probably say something like, I understand that the position, the starting wages for this position is X amount of dollars. My skills and experience are consistent with that. So I would expect that the salary offered would be between $37,000 and $40,000, something like that. So you don't lock yourself in. And it gives the employer a little wiggle room too. I had someone come in this was an hourly position. She was going to be my assistant. I hired her for one reason only, her Excel skills. She did not meet all of my other requirements, and I really didn't like her, to be honest. But you don't have to like everyone that you work with. I hired her because she was a whiz at Excel, and that was the one area that I lacked big time, and I needed that at that moment. So the position was advertised, this is a while ago, the position was advertised at $9 an hour. But because I really needed the skills that she had, I went to my boss, the director of human resources, and I said, I really want her. I really want to lock her in, and I don't want her to go anywhere for a while. So I'd like to offer her the maximum. The maximum was $14 an hour for that position as an assistant. So I offered her the 14, and I got her, and she was super, super happy, and she did an amazing job for almost 2 years before she up and left. And I wasn't mad that she left. I was just mad that she left before I did. I was planning my escape, and she planned her escape to happen, I think, like a month or two before I was planning mine. So I was a little disappointed about that. But anyways, so that's how you negotiate salary. You always want to stay at a range. You have to develop an achievement-based resume, and you have to have someone else look at it for you to check it for any errors, even if you think you don't have any errors. I'm going to end this video pretty soon. I feel like I'm just like rambling on and on and on and on, but I did want to make it because I did want you guys to know that I do have experience in the area, and my heart behind offering my services again in career counseling is because several people have reached out, and I really just want to help you guys get the jobs that you need, or negotiate salary, or even get a promotion. I do have an ebook that I'm going to post for free. I'm not sure how to post ebooks on Facebook, so it might be a link that you have to go elsewhere to get it, but you could just download it. It's in PDF. I just have to make sure that it's current. It's been a couple of years since I've looked at it, but it's called Gaining the Competitive Edge, or Gain a Competitive Edge in Your Job Search. And again, it'll be free. And I created that ebook as a result of a webinar that I did, and I always mention this because this is like my claim to fame. Janella Blair actually brought me in to do a webinar for the Magic Johnson Foundation a few years ago, and I was really nervous, but I was also really excited because, you know, who doesn't want to drop a name like Magic Johnson? So I did that webinar, and the title of that webinar was, you know, Gaining a Competitive Edge in Your Job Search. And so I've taken that title, and I've used, you know, the material and developed some other material and included it in a little ebook. So you guys can have that. I'll give that to you. And I started a fundraiser not too long ago. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday that I put a fundraiser out so that I could give some of my services away. The fundraiser was phenomenal. I think I met the goal overnight, and then I upped it just a little bit because I thought, well, maybe if I get a little bit more, then I can help more than one person. So right now I have enough funds from the fundraiser to help at least one person with a resume and a cover letter and a little bit of advice if you need it. So all you have to do is message me if you're in need. No one has claimed it yet. I put out that I raised enough to help someone, and if you needed help, just to, you know, reach out to me via Facebook Messenger, and I would touch base with you and get going on that. That's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, you know, I have my laptop in front of me, so I can't see questions or who's watching, or hey Adriana, I don't know if you're still here, thank you. And then Daniel, hello Daniel, and Tim, hi Tim, waving at Tim. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, Michael is watching. Hi, Michael. So, any questions before I go? Or if you guys just want to message me, you're more than welcome to do that. I can probably help you with just about anything, even LinkedIn. I mentioned in a post before, a written post, that I worked for Top Resume and Monster Resume. I don't know why I don't like doing live video. I get so nervous, so tongue-tied. But I used to work for Top Resume and Monster Resume, and let me tell you something, they're the same company. So if you get two different estimates from them, just go with whichever one's, you know, the best, giving you the best price. Same writers, I wrote for them, and I would get requests from Top Resume, I would get requests from Monster. Doesn't matter. They use the same writers. They would, you know, contract with, you know, one person for both companies. They have a parent company called Talent Inc. So again, if you want to use them, go with a better price. I can almost guarantee that my price is better than theirs, and you're going to be getting the same service. So probably even better because you can work with me one-on-one. One of the things that Monster and Top don't allow you to do is you can't speak with your writer. You can't speak with the person who's been assigned your resume and cover letter. You can speak with them via email, but with me, if you're working with me, I don't post my phone number online, but I will give you my phone number if I know and trust you, or you've referred someone to me and I can trust that, you know, it's not. Anyway, so if you want to work with me, I'm sure my price is better and you'll get better service. And, you know, I can help you with just about anything, even businesses, because I've started a few businesses and not all of them have been successful, but the ones that I've started recently have been. And so there's a lot of information that I know and I can share with you if you are looking to start your own business from home. And I mentioned that only because someone did ask me if I was going to be doing any material for helping people start businesses. And so I just wanted to mention that I do have experience in that area. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you what I know. So that's pretty much it. Okay, there's a question. Oh, and I think that was Marva who asked me about home-based businesses. Michael says, do you help place people with companies? You know what? I haven't done that in a while. I used to. Used to be very good at it. I used to actually walk people into an employer that I had a relationship with. I would usually tell a manager, you know, hey, I know you're looking for someone who X, Y, Z, and I know someone, let me bring them by. And then I would bring that person by and basically, you know, sell them on the person and say, this is so-and-so, and he's fantastic, and he would be great at this job, or she's wonderful, she's amazing, and, you know, I know you guys would get along really, really well. And I have done that, and so I'm not afraid of doing that, and I was very good at it, and I have 100% success rate in that area. Everyone that I referred and did that with did get hired. So it just depends, I think, on the industry now, because I haven't worked in a company or haven't worked in an office for almost 3 years now. I've been working independently, and for those of you who don't know, how I make my living actually is as a ghost writer. I write for a confidential company, and that allows me a lot of flexibility in my time and my, you know, how I spend my day. I'm not full-time. I guess you could say I'm on the books full-time, but I really am just contracted on a per project basis, but it's consistent work, and it's been exciting, it's been challenging, and you know, I didn't go to school for writing, but I always wanted to be a writer, and I happen to be okay at it. So, so I got this job, and I write independently. And I think it was Marva who asked me about the home-based business. So I think I will do something on that, Marva. If you want to give me a little more information about what you're looking for, then I can probably prepare something that's a little more specific. You need help, Michael, bringing a paralegal and an attorney on board? We can talk about that. I thought you were a judge now, but yeah, I think maybe we have to get caught up, and certainly I can help you with a paralegal and an attorney if you're sourcing candidates for some openings that you have right now. I can put the word out to my connections, and I think you're still in Northern California, right? So yeah, touch base with me on that and I'll see what I can do for you. So if that's it, I am going to call it a day. Okay, thank you everyone for attending. If you want to share the video, please do so. And again, just message me if you have questions, okay? Talk to you later. Thanks, Mike.